It was a scorching summer afternoon and the house felt quieter than usual. I was in the kitchen chopping fruits for a refreshing salad, trying to keep me the occupied. My husband was away, so busy with work that demanded more of his time than our family did. I had grown used to the long hours and leanness that came with them. But something about today felt different. My 21-year-old stepson entered thun exp. His presence was a wazy SEO, full of youthful energy that seemed to brighten the room. Over the years I had grown fond of him, thinking of him as a part of my family, but lately it noticed subtle changes in how he behaved around me, and it was becoming harder to ignore. He need any help? His voice casual yet slightly and he glanced at the fruits I was leasing, then at me, his gaze lingering a split second too long. I smiled, handing him a knife. Sir, you can start with the cantaloupe. He nodded and moved closer, standing beside me as he awkwardly began slicing. His hands were steady at first, but as the moments passed I noticed a slight tremor in his grip. At one point our hands brushed when I reached for a bowl, and he froze for a moment before pulling back quickly, muttering an apology. It's fine, I said lightly, pretending not to see the awkwardness, but inward lie I couldn't shake the growing awareness of Fee. As we worked I caught him stealing glances at me, his eyes darting away every time I turned toward him. It was almost imperceptible, but it wasted here a hesitation, a tension I hadn't felt before. The room suddenly felt smaller, the air thicker. Looks like whirl, I said, breaking the silence and sliding the finished salad onto the can. And Jason nodded, his face slight life flushed as if embarrassed by something couldn't explain. He lingered for longer than necessary before muttering something about needing to make a phone call and leaving the room. He stood alone, staring at the empty doorway, replaying the interaction. In I told myself it was nothing, just a passing moment. Jason was young, probably she or nervous about something unrelated, but deep down I knew better. His glance sessed accidental touches, the way his voice had wavered, it all felt deliberate, even if he hadn't intended it to that. Evaningus, I sat on the couch waiting for Mahazen to return. I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. Jason and me, it was faint, like a shadow moving just out of sight, but it was there, and no matter how hard I tried, he couldn't ignore it. The days that followed felt strange, as if an invisible line had been drawn between Jason and Maya. Either of us acknowledged it. Hester did hanging around the house more fun, offering to help with tea, asks never cared for before. At first he thought nothing of it, but soon it became. Myers' presence wasn't random. One afternoon I was folding laundry in the room when Jason walked in, hadn't say much, just sat on the can, turned on the TV. I kept working. Booty could feel his eyes on me, stealing glances whenever he thought I wasn't looking. It made me uneasy, though I treated to let it show. You've been busy, He said after a while, his tone casual, Booth's expression more serious than usual. Just keeping things in order, I replied, not wing his gaze. He didn't respond, and the silence stretched out longer than it should have. Finally I looked, opened, his eyes locked onto mine. There was a meaning in his expression, curious item or something deeper that left. Moon settled later that week. I decided to spend some time by the pool, hoping to cooler my mind. I wasn't expecting comp, but Jason appeared not long after, claiming he needed a break from heights. He dropped his towel onto a chair and jumped into the water with a hesitation. I stayed on my lounge chair, praying to be engrossed in a book, but when he surfaced from the pool, water dripping from his hair and shoulders, I couldn't help but glance up. He caught me looking in for a brief moment, either Ophus looked or not getting in. He asked, his voice light, but his eyes heavy with meaning. And I said, shaking my head, I'm fine here. He's closer to the edge, resting his arms at the side of the pool, his gazing art on me in a way that felt far too intimate. I felt the heat rise within me, not from the sun, but from the tension between us. You've been quiet lately, said, his tone softer now. I shrugged, ring to deflect, just tired. I guess just didn't push further, but the way Hud at me made it clear he wasn't buying my answer. After a while, hecked out of the pool, grabbing his towel and drying off as he walked past, water droplets falling onto the hot pavement. I felt my heart race in the Quiet moments after he left, I sat there, playing everything in my mind I couldn't deny that something wash a painting. Something I wasn't ready talk and frony. Way he looked at me, the way Hellinger. Near me it wasn't an AA no more, it was deliberate, and the weight of it was impossible to ignore. It lay at night, and the house was quiet. I had gone to the kitchen for some water, hoping to clear my mind, the air of TV, not just from the summer heat but from the tension that had been building over the past few weeks. I didn't expect to see Jason there, shirtless and leading Gagjin the counter. As he raged through the fridge, "You're up late," I said, trying to sound casual, though my voice betrayed the nervousness I felt. "Couldn't sleep," he replied without looking at me. He closed the fridge and turned around, his eyes meeting mine, something in heist expression made my breath catch, a mixture of vulnerability and boldness I hadn't seen before. For a moment neither of us spoke. The silence between us was loud, filled with words either of us or to say. I could feel the weight oist gaze, the way his eyes lingered, known, and the glass in my hand, but on me, Eve, being meaning to ask you something. His tone hesitant. I tilted my head, trying to play it off as nothing. "What's that?" He hesitated, then took a step closer. "Do you ever feel like you didn't belong where you are?" The question caught me off guard. I searched his fancy of how to answer. "What do you mean?" Amy said, his voice soft, like you're meant for something else, and me more like you're stuck in olive. That doesn't really fit you." I didn't know how to respond. The honesty in his words, the way they mirrored feelings I buried deep inside, left him shaken. Before I could think of an answer, stepped closer again, close and off it. I could feel the warmth of his presence. "Jason," I started, but he cut me off. "I know this is wrong," he said quickly, his voice trembling. "I know I shouldn't feel this way, but I can't stop. I've tried and I can't." I stared at Jaime, heart pounding so loudly I could hear it. "We can," I whispered, my voice barely audible. He didn't move, didn't look away. "I think about you all time. I try not to, but I can't help it. You're all I see." His words hung in there, raw and unfiltered. Wanted to tell him to stop, to leave, to pretend this conversation never happened, but I didn't. I couldn't. When he retched out, brushing his fingers lightly against me arm, it felt like fire. I should have pet away, should have told him this was impossible. Instead I stood frozen, lighting the moment stretch into something it shouldn't have been. Then EAP pawned. His lips touched mine, tentative at first, but quickly deepening. The kiss was electric, overwhelming, and entirely wrong. I pulled back abruptly, tears, "And then this can't happen," I said, my voice breaking. Without waiting for his response, I turned and left the room, leaving him standing there in silence. Seth, next morning, was unbearable. The air between us was thick with everything glyph unsaid. I avoided looking at Jason, facing instead on mundane tasks, hoping to regain some sense of normally. Bevar time he entered the room. Mel quickened and I felt the weight of his presence at breakfast. He sat across from me, unusually quiet. My husband chattered about work, oblivious to the tension crackling between Jason and me, and added along, pretending to listen, but MIM was elsewhere, replaying the kiss over and over. After my husband left for work, Jason lingered in the living room. It tried to avoid him, but when I walk it past, he called out soft, "When we talk." I froze. I knew I couldn't avoid this conversation forever. Without a word, I turned and sat down on the edge of the couch, keeping as much distance as possible. "I'm sorry," he began, his voice filled with regret. "I never should have. I didn't mean to make things harder for you." I shook my head, my hands clasped pat in my lap. "Jason, what happened last night? It can't happen again." Was the line I know, he said, quick, lining forward. "I know it's wrong, but I can't pretend I don't feel the way I do. You mean more to me than anyone else." Savor has his words cut through me like anif. I wanted to tell him to stop, to leave me alone, but the sincerity in his voice made it impossible. "This isn't fair," he said, finally, my voice trembling. Not to you, and definitely not to your father." He flinched at the mention of his father, but he didn't back down. "I can't help how I feel," he said, his voice bare a lob of a whisper. "I know you feel something too. Don't tell me you do." Truth hung heavy between us. I couldn't deny it anymore. I had felt something I couldn't explain or justify, but that didn't make it right. "What we feel doesn't matter," I said firmly, Though my voice wavered, we have Veto let go, Jason, we can't do this. To him looked at me with a mix of pain and determination. I don't want to hurt him. Said, but I can't pretend this isn't. Trail, you're the only person who's ever made me feel this way before. I cold. Respond, the sound of a car pulling in a driveway shattered the moment my husband was home early. Jason and I exchanged a panicked glance, and Heckley stood up, retreating to his room without another word. As I watched him disappear down the hallway, I felt unease in my chest that I couldn't explain. Lines had been blurred, the boundaries broken, and nothing would ever be the same again. My heart was torn between guilt, loyalty, and something I dared not name, and for the first time he wasn't sure what I would do next.